Hello friends, I am Arpit, and as we cover every month the current affairs magazine, the most important topics from international relations segment, we are going to cover this month also. The month's magazine, previous months, news pieces are entailed in this month's magazine and it has been released. And from international relations segment, I'm going to cover one topic, that is Pakistan-Saudi Arabia defense agreement. Now, this defense agreement is based on the concept of collective defense. You need to understand what collective defense simply means. So, the concept of collective defense simply means that if any country attacks Saudi Arabia, I'm taking the context of this agreement only. If any country attacks Saudi Arabia, initiates an attack, पहल करता है, then that attack will be considered as an attack on Pakistan also. And collectively, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan will collect that attacker or attack that attacker. Simultaneously, if someone or some country attacks Pakistan, Saudi Arabia will consider that an attack on Saudi Arabia, and collectively Saudi Arabia and Pakistan will attack that attacker. This is what the concept of collective defense is. And this concept of collective defense is now applicable in the Strategic Mutual Defense Agreement. It is the name of this agreement between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. Now, there are various viewpoints you need to know and understand in this deal. One viewpoint is the viewpoint of West Asia. In West Asia, there are three major stakeholders. One is Iran, one is Israel, and the third is these Sunni countries where Saudi Arabia is. Does any of these stakeholders have nuclear weapons? Yes, only Israel. Iran tried to develop, but Iran, was attacked by USA and Israel. Now, Saudi Arabia says that I am not going to develop nuclear weapons. I will sign an agreement with some other country which has nuclear weapons, and in this case it is Pakistan, the only Islamic country having nuclear weapons. And Saudi Arabia relies upon Pakistan's nukes now. It has created a nuclear deterrence in West Asia, this particular agreement, without Saudi Arabia occupying or acquiring nuclear arms or developing nuclear arms. Israel now knows that if it attacks Saudi Arabia, Pakistan and Saudi Arabia will attack Israel, including nuclear weapons can be used. This is explicitly mentioned in this particular agreement. So a deterrence has been created in West Asia. Probably due to this agreement, Israel won't think to attack Saudi Arabia, or Iran won't think to attack Saudi Arabia. On the other hand, India-Pakistan tensions are always there. And, India-Saudi Arabia relations are good. But because of this agreement, they can be impacted in case of a war between Pakistan and India. Well, it will be very difficult to prove who initiated the attack. And since it will be very difficult to prove who initiated the attack, so it will be a grey zone kind of. But yes, if it is proven that India initiated the attack, then Saudi Arabia will be this treaty bound or agreement bound to attack India. That is what you need to understand from both the viewpoints. Okay. Now, this is called as Strategic Mutual Defense Agreement. Key terms of the agreement: principle of collective defense is there. You know very well what the principle of collective defense means. Then there is comprehensive defense cooperation. Basically, defense trade and all will be comprehensive between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. That is also there. Intelligence sharing agreements, other kind of logistical agreements will also be there. Kind of strategic partnership. Then permanent coordination mechanisms. like operationalized cooperation, the agreement envisages creation of permanent coordination structures that in case of an attack which we have to collectively do, what will be the standard operating procedures. We have to establish that, we have to do exercises for that, we have to practice that. Then potential nuclear dimension is there because see, Pakistan is the only Islamic country having access to nuclear weapons, and that nuclear weapons is also included in this deal, that if any country attacks Saudi Arabia, collectively Pakistan and Saudi Arabia will attack that country. They can use nuclear weapons also in their attack. This has been explicitly mentioned. Likewise, if any country attacks Pakistan, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan will attack that country. Nuclear weapons can be used. So this is what this potential nuclear dimension is there. But yes, there has been a history of Saudi-Pakistan ties, especially defense ties. And this history is dated back to 1970s, I would say. So since the 1970s, Pakistani soldiers have been stationed in Saudi Arabia to protect the kingdom. Pakistan actively supported Saudi Arabia in 1969 Al-Wadiha war against South Yemen by providing pilots and logistical aids. In 1970s, 1980s, when this entire region, West Asia, was under turmoil, Iran-Iraq war, Saudi Arabia hosted Pakistan soldiers to provide a security buffer against these threats. In 1979, Pakistan commandos assisted Saudi forces in suppressing Grand Mosque siege. And in 1982, Defense Cooperation Agreement institutionalized Pakistan's troop deployment in Saudi Arabia. And now this agreement has happened. And this agreement was also under discussion since long, I would say. It is not out of the blue that this happened. It was under discussion since long. But yes, we need to know the history of defense ties. The reasons behind signing the agreement: erosion of faith in US security guarantees to Saudi Arabia in West Asia. So USA is, I would say, creating a vacuum by withdrawing itself. It has now become more inward looking under Donald Trump especially. So this is what, first reason is. Second is diversification of security partnerships. Both the countries needed diversification, and there was a conflict of Saudi Arabia and Iran. In 2023, China brokered Saudi-Iranian normalization or Saudi-Iran peace deal. But yes, due to that deal, there is not as such peace between the two countries. There can be tensions between the two countries because Sunni-Shia conflict has always been there. That cultural conflict has transformed into political conflict. And if such kind of conflict is there with Iran or with Israel, diversification of security partnerships is also needed. You never know who will leave your support or who will, refrain support to you at any point of time. Then ongoing instability in the region. Saudi Arabia faces growing threats from Iran's proxies like Yemen, may Houthis or Hezbollah. So this is also another reason for this deal to be signed. Pakistan's strategic opportunity to increase its presence in West Asia among the Islamic countries, to put more pressure on India. So this is an opportunity in front of Pakistan. Now, regional and global implications of this particular deal. You also need to know this. So there is shift in US-China strategic competition. And this US-China strategic competition is now more about technology, economy, thereby creating a vacuum in the defense segment in West Asia. That is why Pakistan had tried to fill this vacuum. Realignment of West Asia, South Asia security architecture. Agreement formally links Gulf security with South Asian military capabilities. So this has brought West Asia and South Asia more closer to each other. Implications for Saudi Arabia. It enhances Saudi Arabia's deterrence by tapping Pakistan military's expertise and potential nuclear capabilities. And simultaneously for Pakistan, it is also there implications for Pakistan. Pakistan stands to gain financially and diplomatically from closer ties with Saudi Arabia. Financial gains for Pakistan is much a priority as of now. So from partnering with Saudi Arabia, this can be fulfilled. Impact on Arab-Israel normalization process. Saudi Arabia's formal defense agreement with Pakistan, an outspoken supporter of Palestinian rights and opponent of Israeli policies, may slow down or complicate Saudi Arabia's normalization pact with or path with Israel. Now, by signing this deal with Pakistan, Saudi Arabia has moved more towards the Islamic world, whereas it is needed that Saudi Arabia and Israel they come on terms with each other. Abraham Accords were signed in 2020, where UAE and Bahrain agreed to come closer to Israel. UAE and Bahrain are also Sunni countries. Saudi Arabia was largely silent, and everyone was watching Saudi Arabia that what Saudi Arabia will do, because Saudi Arabia is a major player in West Asia and in the Islamic world. Now, Saudi Arabia has moved away from Israel towards Pakistan more and more, or has become more deeply entrenched in the Islamic world. So, this is basically pulling itself away from Israel. Now, implications for India. Erosion of India's economic and strategic leverage with Saudi Arabia. This can bring in challenges for India, and there are these kind of corridors, India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor, which has been envisaged, which has been announced, which has been planned. An announcement was done in 2023 G20 summit. Those can suffer. So, this is one thing. Strategic rebalancing in West Asia. Pact could complicate India's Look West policy. And this Look West policy of India, which is aimed at balancing every stakeholder in West Asia, that is the Sunnis, Shias and the Jews. Jews are Israel, Shias are Iran, and Sunnis are UAE, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar and all such kind of countries. Deeper India-Israel defense cooperation can be witnessed with this. Israel and India can come closer to each other. Okay. So this is all what can happen. And if I talk about India-Saudi Arabia relations, India is the second largest trade partner of Saudi Arabia, whereas the kingdom is the fifth largest trading partner of India. FY 23-24 bilateral trade stood at $43 billion. Indian exports $11.56 billion and imports $31.42 billion. Most of it were energy imports, I would say. Roughly 2.6 million Indian expatriates or Indian members of the Indian diaspora work in Saudi Arabia, and most of them are involved in blue collar jobs, that is semi-skilled or unskilled jobs. So this is what you need to know about this particular deal. Most importantly, what is this deal? What are the implications on India of this deal? What are the global implications of this deal? From these lenses, you had to deal with this deal. So with this, we end this topic, and I'll be meeting you for other topics on this month's magazine. Namaste. Jai Hind.